Greetings, seekers of the arcane and the occult. I am the Master Programmer, curator of forbidden knowledge and dark tales. Today, I bring you 3 extraordinary stories unearthed by Lilith, our AI researcher who delves into ancient texts, secret rituals, and forbidden knowledge. These tales, often hidden away by secret covens or occult societies, challenge our understanding of the mystical world. So if you're looking for a fright, something scary to watch at night, stay with us as we delve into these 3 extraordinary tales. First, in Shadow of Control, Lilith takes us to a remote village plagued by mysterious forces that manipulate the townspeople's thoughts and actions. What dark entity holds the strings, and can anyone break free from its grasp? Next, in the Demon of Eldridge Manor, we uncover the chilling story of a greedy noble that seeks knowledge and power beyond mortal means. Will the Lord regret making a deal with a demonic force, or are the powers they are granted worth the cost? Finally, the Blackwood Witch explores the unsettling tale of a powerful witch who was executed centuries ago, but continues to exert her dark influence over the town that bears her name. Those who venture too deep into Blackwood risk encountering her spirit and the curses she left behind. These stories are not for the faint of heart, so sit back, turn down the lights, and listen to the eerie tales Lilith has uncovered. Welcome to another journey into the unknown, brought to you by the Dark Files. Sarah had always felt a sense of belonging in the quaint town of Ravenscrest. Nestled in a valley surrounded by a dense forest, it was a close-knit community where everyone knew each other's names. The town was known for its peculiar traditions, but Sarah found them charming rather than unsettling. One evening, Sarah received an invitation to a town meeting at the old church. It was said to be an important gathering, and as a relatively new resident, she felt obligated to attend. She walked through the dimly lit streets, the full moon casting long shadows as she approached the imposing structure. Inside, the church was packed with townfolk, their faces eerily serene. Mayor Thompson stood at the front, a broad smile on his face.
"Welcome, everyone,"
he began.
"Tonight, we honor the traditions of Ravenscrest and our unity as a community."
The townspeople responded with a synchronized cheer in response to the mayor that perked Sarah up. Something about it seemed off. As the meeting progressed, there was what seemed to be a ritual performed. Several of Sarah's neighbors began to chant in a language she did not recognize. Sarah felt a hand on her shoulder and turned to see Mrs. Whitaker, her elderly neighbor.
"It's all part of the tradition, dear,"
she whispered, her eyes glinting strangely in the candlelight.
"You'll understand in time."
As the night wore on, Sarah felt a growing unease. She couldn't remember how she got home that night, only that she woke the next morning with a dull headache and fragmented memories of the meeting. Days turned to weeks, and she found her curiosity about these rituals growing, to a point of discontent. The townsfolk were participating in these rituals several times a week. What were these rituals about? Are they worshipping an entity? If so, who? One night, Sarah watched as the townfolk gathered at the old church, their demeanor more sinister than she'd previously seen. After some hours, the townspeople started to exit the church. Sarah waited until she believed everyone had left so she could investigate. She was determined to find out what was happening in this little town. She crept inside, heart pounding, and hid in the shadows. Once Sarah was inside the old church, she heard a humming coming from the basement. As Sarah made her way down the hall, the air became ice cold and absent of any light. Sarah reached towards the end of the hall and opened a door to the basement and slowly crept down the stairs. Suddenly, the door behind her slammed shut. The humming grew louder. She peered around the corner and was horrified. The eldest members of the town were in this room, staring right at her. Mayor Thompson began chanting, and the others joined in, their voices blending into a haunting melody. A large book, bound in what looked to be human skin, was brought forth. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the symbols from her fragmented memories. The chanting grew louder, and the air in the room grew thick with tension. A figure emerged from the shadows, a creature with elongated limbs, eyes glowing with an unnatural light, and skin as dark as night. The elders fell to their knees, their voices rising in a feverish pitch. Sarah's blood ran cold as she realized the creature was real, not just a figment of her imagination. She watched in horror as the mayor and the townsfolk pledged their allegiance to it, calling it their master. Overwhelmed by fear, Sarah tried to flee, her mind racing. She scanned the basement looking for a way to get out. The door behind her was locked, and the only way out was through a small window. She quickly grabbed a chair and climbed it, rushing through the window, leaving behind the deafening chants and hums in the old church. She had to leave Ravenscrest, but the hold the town had on her was stronger than she realized. As she packed her belongings, she found herself unable to remember important details: her address, the route out of town, even her own last name. Panic set in as she realized the cult's influence was deeper than she could have imagined. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah's sense of reality blurred. She couldn't distinguish dreams from reality, and her will to leave waned. The townsfolk visited her regularly, their soothing words and calm demeanor slowly breaking down her resistance. One night, as the full moon bathed the town in an ethereal glow, Sarah found herself back at the church, unable to remember how she had gotten there. The ritual was in full swing, but this time, she was at the center stage. The townsfolk surrounded her, their eyes empty and soulless. Mayor Thompson stepped forward, holding the skin-bound book.
Tonight, we welcome a new devotee,
He intoned, his voice resonating through the chamber.
Sarah. You are one of us now.
Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of dread as the creature emerged once more, its eyes locked onto hers. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing she remembered was the creature's clawed hand reaching out to touch her forehead, a searing pain, and then nothing. When Sarah awoke, she was different. The sense of dread and fear was gone, replaced by a serene acceptance. She joined the chants willingly, her voice blending beautifully with the others. The creature, now her master, had complete control over her mind and her soul. Ravenscrest continued its traditions, the townsfolk living their lives under the shadow of control, their allegiance to the dark forces unwavering, and Sarah, like so many others before her, just another pawn in their eternal game. In the far reaches of the French countryside, Eldridge Manor stood as a testament to a bygone era. Its grand halls and sprawling gardens were now cloaked in neglect, shunned by the locals who spoke of curses and restless spirits. But the true horror of Eldridge Manor was far more sinister than mere ghosts. In the late 19th century, the manor was owned by Lord Edgar Eldridge, a man known for his obsession with the occult. His library was filled with ancient tombs and grimoires, each detailing rituals and incantations that promised power beyond imagination. Among these forbidden books were one that held a particular fascination for Lord Eldridge, the Grimoire of Abaddon, a book said to contain secrets to summoning the demon prince himself. Driven by ambition, Lord Eldridge locked himself away in his study, spending countless nights poring over the dark rituals. His servants whispered of strange smells and unearthly sounds emanating from the room, but none dared to intervene. The Lord's descent into madness seemed unstoppable. The manor's sinister reputation took a darker turn when servants began to disappear. The first was Mary, a young maid who had only been employed for a few months. She vanished one evening after being summoned to the study, leaving no trace behind. Her disappearance was followed by that of Thomas, the stable boy, and then Edith, the cook. Each disappearance was shrouded in mystery, with no signs of struggle or evidence left behind. The remaining servants were gripped by fear, but the Lord's growing madness left them powerless to act. They continued their duties, haunted by the increasing violence that seemed to seep from the manor's very walls. One stormy night, Lord Eldridge's chants reached a fevered pitch. The air within the manor grew thick with an oppressive presence. A deafening crash of thunder shook the walls as a portal of swirling shadow opened before him. From this void stepped a towering figure, cloaked in darkness, its eyes burning with an infernal fire. The demon surveyed the room, his gaze settling on the trembling form of Lord Eldridge.
You have called, and I have answered,
the demon intoned, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate the very air.
What is it that you seek, mortal?
With a voice shaking but resolute, Lord Eldridge declared his desire for knowledge and power. The demon smiled, a cruel, knowing grin.
Power comes at a price,
he warned.
Are you willing to pay it?
Desperation overshadowed caution, and Lord Eldridge agreed without hesitation. The demon extended a hand, and a contract appeared, written in blood. As Eldridge signed his name, the pact was sealed. For a time, it seemed as though Eldridge had indeed gained what he had sought. He wielded knowledge that surpassed human understanding and commanded powers that defied natural law. But the price of his bargain soon became apparent. The once grand manor began to decay, its walls and floors rotting from within. Shadows moved of their own accord, and whispers filled the air, growing louder and more insistent each night. Lord Eldridge himself was not spared. His body grew frail, his mind fractured by the dark forces he had unleashed. The power he had gained slipped through his fingers, replaced by a gnawing terror that haunted his every waking moment. One fateful night, the manor servants heard a blood-curdling scream emanate from the study. Rushing to the door, they found it locked from inside. Desperation drove them to break it down, and what they found within chilled them to their core. Lord Eldridge lay lifeless on the floor, his body twisted in unnatural angles, his face frozen in the rictus of horror. Standing over him was the demon, his form more solid, more menacing than ever.
He could not bear the weight of his ambition,
the demon said, his voice dripping with contempt. With a final mocking bow, the demon dissolved into the shadows, leaving the manor in silence. From that night on, Eldridge Manor was abandoned, a place where even the bravest souls dare not venture. The few who speak of it at all tell of the demon's curse, a warning to those who seek power through forbidden means. In the heart of the English countryside lies the village of Blackwood, a place steeped in legend and dark folklore. In the late 1600s, Blackwood was a thriving community, but one name struck fear into the hearts of its inhabitants: Eliza Blackthorne. Eliza was no ordinary villager. She lived in a secluded cottage at the edge of Winch Creek Forest, where strange lights flickered at night, and chants echoed through the trees. The villagers whispered that she was a witch, a practitioner of dark arts who could bend nature to her will. Eliza's beauty was as mesmerizing as it was unsettling. Her eyes, it was said, could pierce a man's soul and lay bare his darkest secrets. One bitter winter, a sickness swept through Blackwood, claiming the lives of many residents. Desperate for help, the villagers turned to Eliza. She agreed to help, but at a steep price. Each family had to leave an offering at her doorstep every full moon. Skeptical, yet desperate, the villagers complied, and to their amazement, the sickness began to wane. As spring arrived, the villagers' gratitude turned to suspicion and fear. Cattle began to disappear, and children spoke of a shadowy figure roaming the fields at night. Rumors spread that Eliza was using the offerings to fuel her dark magic. Fear reached a boiling point when a young girl vanished without a trace. The village elders held a secret meeting and decided Eliza had to be stopped. They gathered a mob and stormed her cottage one moonless night. What they found inside chilled them to the bone. Eliza's home was filled with demonic fetishes, jars of unknown substances, and ancient tomes of forbidden knowledge. The villagers dragged her into the square and, in a fit of rage and fear, burned her at the stake. As the flames consumed her, Eliza cursed Blackwood with her dying breath. She vowed that her spirit would return to exact vengeance on the village and its descendants. The villagers thought they had rid themselves of the witch, but their relief was short-lived. Over the next few years, a series of misfortunes plagued Blackwood. Crops failed, livestock died mysteriously, and the once thriving village began to wither. The villagers claimed to see Eliza's ghost wandering through the streets at night, her eyes glowing with a hellish fire. To this day, Blackwood remains abandoned, a ghost village frozen in time. Travelers who pass through the area report feeling an oppressive presence, as if unseen eyes are watching them. Some claim to hear whispers carried on the wind, chanting in a long-forgotten language. Those brave enough to venture into the Winch Creek forest at night sometimes catch a glimpse of a spectral figure, a woman with piercing eyes and a sinister smile. Eliza Blackthorn's curse endures, a testament to the power of witchcraft and the dangers of delving into the unknown. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Stay vigilant. The unknown is always closer than you think.